great honor and privilege to welcome you all here. And this is a special night for us, that during these busy times of the General Assembly, we have the honor that we will hear the thoughts and vision of a very young foreign minister. I'm very proud of him because he has the energy of a real sportsman. He starts running every morning at 6 o'clock. He's working throughout the whole night, the whole day. He's here to give a speech and then he's off because he has another program. So he is really a marathon runner and really, I would say, a political animal. He was the youngest one who entered the parliament. He has been working for this party for a long time. He was born to become a foreign minister. So we are very happy to have you here. Foreign and foreign trade. Yes, I know that. It's very important for us because of his vision. Foreign trade is one of the main initiatives which can connect us with the world. And I'm, of course, so happy to have my dear friend, the president of the Foreign Policy Association here. And it's really great that you came to the Hungarian mission of the UN. What an organization you have. What a privilege it is for us to welcome you all here. And I hope that we will continue this very special bond. We are planning to have all kinds of events, and we are looking forward to seeing you again. Could you just say a few words, Mr. President?
Thank you. Foreign Minister Szijjártó, I want to congratulate you and your government for sending us this amazing diplomat to the United Nations. Ambassador Bogyay, as they say, has not been here long, but she has hit the ground running. And she did an amazing job with this. She's very interested in the arts. She came to us from Paris, where she was at UNESCO. And she did this amazing Salon d'été, which people are still talking about. So we are really thrilled to have her here. We are thrilled to be working with the permanent mission to do these kinds of events. We believe that, I should say that this year marks the bicentennial of the Congress of Vienna. And as we know, there was a very vibrant overlay of cultural diplomacy in Vienna 200 years ago. And I think Ambassador Bogyay is bringing this, resurrecting this in New York. Of course, there were very substantive issues discussed. And today, Europe is at a crossroads. We have the issues on the Eastern Front with, of course, Ukraine, very worrisome issues. On the Western Front, we don't know whether the United Kingdom is going to remain in the EU. And then throughout the perimeter of Europe, there are issues of millions of people who want to come over for political and economic reasons. So it's a very important time to hear the Hungarian perspective, an important perspective on these issues. And without further ado, I think we should turn the floor over to His Excellency.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I just would like to say that, as I said at the beginning, the foreign minister has to leave. He has a dinner actually with all the foreign minister of the EU and John Kerry. So what we are planning to do is that there will be a lecture about 20 minutes, and then it's free for questions and answers. And then we will open the buffet. And that's the plan. With further ado, I'm inviting the minister. The floor is yours. Thank
you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate this possibility. It is my honor to address you for a couple of minutes, remarks about the current situation in Europe. I'm really thankful for this invitation because I could accept it during pretty challenging times. So there are much to speak about. If it was a normal situation in Europe, maybe that would be a boring 20 minutes now. it can be still boring, but well, at least there's something that we have to speak about. As you know, I'm coming from Hungary, coming from Europe, which has not had to face so many and so serious challenges at the same time since the conclusion of the Second World War than currently. Because if we put into consideration the situation in Europe, you would say that that statement is not an exaggeration. What challenges we have? First of all, there is a war in the neighborhood, there is a war in Ukraine. And we are speaking about the 21st century. Maybe a couple months or years ago, we would have never thought about having a war in Europe again. But this is the case. War in Ukraine, which is pretty much worrying us, since there are 150,000 Hungarians living in Ukraine. The measures that have been taken by European Union and the countermeasures that have been taken by Russia actually harmed them, the Russians, harmed them, the Ukrainians, and harmed us, all Europeans. Causes a lot of difficulties, politically, trade-wise, economically, because it would be, or it is actually, Europe's core interest to be able to cooperate with Russia in a pragmatic way, based on mutual respect and based on the respect of international law. But currently, we are too far of this situation which we would like to be. And as we look at the economies of Russia, Ukraine, and the CIS countries, we see that the economies of these countries are in a pretty bad shape. If we have a look at the Russian economic achievement, we see that because of the foreign capital pulling out, because investments are being postponed, because of the currency challenges, because of the oil price, and because of the sanctions, the Russian economy has been struggling really significant difficulties. But the problem is that it has a very negative impact on the economies of the CIS countries, and as the European countries usually have a significant part of their trade with Russia, Ukraine, and the CIS countries, this kind of struggle of Russia and the neighboring countries cause a lot of difficulties to us Europeans as well. Although we know that there is only one possible way to resolve this situation, and it would be that all parties should implement all regulations of the Minsk Agreement, but that seems to be too far now to come into reality. So this is the first challenge we have been facing currently, war in Ukraine. The second one is that there are actually frozen conflicts surrounding Europe. European Union has a program which we call Eastern Partnership, which has a mission to build up a strategic and deep cooperation between those former Soviet Union republics which feel desire to have a European perspective. But if we put this into consideration, we see that there are 6 of these countries, out of which 5 are involved in some kind of frozen territorial conflict. Because there is Ukraine, there is Moldova, part of the country is not under control of the central government. There is Georgia. You know, there are 2 kind of republics on the territory of Georgia which are not under control of the government in Tbilisi. And we have Azerbaijan and Armenia, which have been in a conflict for a couple of years now, and having territorial debates with each other. There's only one country, Belarus, which is not involved in any kind of territorial disputes. I have already initiated a couple of times to my European colleagues that this is a reason why we should change the approach towards Belarus, but in a hypocritical way, I'm usually then under attack after saying such kind of things, and they say I rather not be too loud on that, but I mean, I'm still very loud on that, of course. The third challenge we have been facing is a terror threat. Actually, like a couple of years or a decade ago, we switched in television in Europe. You know, there were scenes from the Middle East, of course, shocking. But there was one kind of feeling that was in ourselves saying that, okay, that's a couple of thousand kilometers away, and that cannot happen in Europe. And now what we have been facing currently is that the ISIS, involving foreign fighters, 30,000 of them, a couple of thousand of them from Europe, what we see the terror threat in Paris, we see Copenhagen, and it's not an exaggeration to say that the terror threat has been increasing on the European Union member states, and kind of became a part of the everyday life in Europe. The fourth challenge is an economic type one. I just would like to tell you 3 figures here, and you will understand what I could speak about for hours, because Katalin was so kind to mention I'm not only supervising foreign affairs rather than foreign trade, and but I will stick to 3 figures and leave it there. That European Union, population-wise, European Union has 7 or 8% of world's population. 7 or 8%. EU produces like 15 to 16% of world's GDP. 15 to 16% of world's GDP. But in the meantime, we've been distributing 50% of the world's social welfare spending. You don't have to be an economist to make clear that it is totally unsustainable. Not even on the long run, but on short run as well. So these economic challenges are there. And there's the 5th challenge. You can read about it a lot, I'm pretty sure you do. This is the migration issue. You know, this migration issue causes a whole bunch of difficulties to Europe currently. Why does it cause many difficulties? Because Europe has not been able to find the proper answer yet. And this is not without a reason either. We have not found the reason, we have not found the answer to this challenge because there is no consensus, not even in Europe, about the nature and about the size or volume of this challenge. What about the nature of the challenge? You can read in the newspapers that there's a refugee crisis, which is simply not true. This is not a refugee crisis. This is a mass migration, mass popular movement, a mass migration with unlimited sources of supply of people. Those ones who are coming are mainly consist of economic migrants, most of them, vast majority. Then there are asylum seekers, and there are some foreign fighters. So this is how it is composed together. So the nature of this is not a refugee crisis. This is a mass migration issue with unlimited sources of supply of people. Because if you put into consideration the region surrounding Europe, what you see, there are around 8 million people living on humanitarian aid in Iraq. There are 12 million people living on humanitarian aid in Syria. Out of these 12 million, around 7 million are internally displaced persons. In the sub-Saharan region, there are 12.5 million IDPs. And then I have not mentioned Yemen, Libya, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the others. So there's an unlimited source of supply. And that's why if we only speak about a refugee crisis, then we do not address actually what has been happening. And if we are not able to categorize what has been happening, we will be totally unsuccessful when we look for answers, because then we don't look for an answer for the proper question. So that's why it has been such a challenge. Now, what are the causes of this mass migration movement? There are 2 main causes for that. One is ISIS, and the other one are the bad international political decisions of recent times. You know, ISIS is gaining territory, actually. That's the truth. ISIS is gaining territory. Although we have formed the widest ever or the broadest ever coalition, what has been put together because of a military goal or objective. regardless that fact, we have just reached very limited success so far. So if we want to be successful against ISIS, we have to we have to increase our efforts. We Hungarians have a contribution to that. Of course, you have to judge it based on a Hungarian dimension, that we have deployed 112 troops to Iraq, to Kurdistan, originally with the task of force protection, but actually now they are involved in training activities as well. So ISIS is one of the root causes, because the bigger territories actually ISIS occupies, the more people will have to escape. The second reason is the bad international political decisions. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that there's a war in Syria. There's a totally destabilized system in Libya. Actually, I don't think we can afford pulling out from Afghanistan in 2017. The Iraqi government is not taking control over a significant part of the country. So some bad international political decisions which led to unstable regions and unstable countries. This is the other root cause, and this is the other source of this mass migration. Just imagine, only into Hungary, there were 287,000 irregular migrants arriving only this year. Only this year. 287,000 only to Hungary. And of course, most of them are leaving because they are not coming to Hungary. They want to go to Austria, Germany, Sweden. But still, you know, I of course see the articles and reports about Hungary in US media, showing how bad people we are. And actually here, I just want to say that, you know, if someone would like to move from Serbia to Hungary, or from Serbia to Croatia, and then from Croatia to Hungary, and then from Hungary to Austria, and then from Austria to Germany, is not motivated because of life hazard. Because no one's life is danger in Serbia, no one's life is danger in Croatia, no one's life is danger in Hungary, no one's life is danger in Austria. These people have another type of motivation when they move between these countries. And this is an economic motivation, which I don't want to judge as a bad motivation, because it's totally understandable. Everyone wants a better life in economic terms. That's a normal motivation. But then if this is the motivation, you know, just don't categorize them as refugees. Because when a family leaves Syria, then they are refugees. They arrive in Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey. They live in refugee camps, which are not the best places to be, of course, but they live there. But as they leave Turkey, they go to Greece, which is a member of European Union, and they don't leave Greece because they are in a life hazard. That's not the reason why they leave Greece for Macedonia. The reason is that they would like to go to Germany. So, and once again, I don't judge it. I just want to say that this is the situation, and then don't write articles about refugee crisis, because it's not true. You know, what we have been facing now is that they are more and more aggressive. Here I would like to make a parenthesis or brackets, and I would like to say a couple of words about a situation which happened at the Hungarian border like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm pretty sure that you have read a lot of articles that rude Hungarian police people used tear gas and water cannon against very innocent and very friendly refugees. What happened was the following, that a group of very aggressive people wanted to come into Hungary, but of course police didn't let them come, since there are regulations how you can cross the border of a country. A state is a state because it can have a control on their own borders. You know, we have studied a lot how US defends its borders, how US built a wall on the border between US and Mexico. So they wanted to come into Hungary. Police didn't let them come. So what they have done, they took stones, pieces of concrete, and they started to throw on the Hungarian police people. And they have been doing, they've done it for like an hour or 1.5 hours, you know. And then police, of course, reacted. 14 Hungarian policemen injured. because of the stones and the pieces of concrete. Whatever was found on the road, they threw it on the Hungarian policemen. So, of course, they used the water cannon and some tear gas after 1.5 hours. But what we read in international media, that there were innocent women and children, refugees. You know, they were speaking very nicely to the Hungarian policemen, begging them to let them in, and the rude Hungarian policemen used tear gas. You know, so this is why we say that there's an international media campaign against Hungary, without a doubt, and we are not having currently the fair approach. I mean, we don't have the possibility to be fairly treated by international media in this respect. But I close the brackets. I just wanted to let you know, because I'm pretty sure that you have seen these scenes and that you have read those articles, and I wanted you to be able to see both sides of the coins. What is Europe's answer? It's not an answer, actually. What Europe has been doing? European institutions said that we have to have a system of obligatory quotas, how we relocate the asylum seekers. You know, it doesn't make sense. Because there was a very long political debate between European Union member states how we relocate 120,000 irregular migrants. Until we debated about that, much more than 120,000 irregular migrants arrived to Europe. Only to Hungary this year too. 280-some thousand, you know, we debated about 120,000. On a daily basis, there are more than 10 to 15,000 arriving, you know, and we debate about 120,000. So we said it doesn't make sense, because until we are able to get back the control over our borders, it doesn't make sense to speak about quotas. It is obvious that Greece cannot defend the external border of European Union. It's obvious. I'm not judging them. It's a fact. It's not easy, because it's more than I don't know how many thousands of kilometers of sea border plus the islands. It's not easy. But in order to be able to defend ourselves and to decrease the pressure on European Union, we have to be able somehow to defend the border of Greece, which is the external border of European Union. So what was our suggestion is that we should put together a joint EU force, you know, because it's a professional question. How many soldiers, how many troops, how many policemen, how many planes, helicopters, boats, ships, Googles, whatever we need in order to be able to defend the border. I'm pretty sure we need a whole bunch of things, but then we have to put it together, a list, and then let's distribute it among European Union member countries. There, we would support obligatory quota. Let's put it together and let's be able to defend our borders. Because as soon as we are able to do so, then we do know about how many people we are speaking about, and then let's relocate them. But you know, relocating 120,000 and having more than 10,000 coming in every day doesn't make sense. What was our second suggestion? We think that the right approach is that we have to help the real refugees to stay as close to their homes as it is just possible. Because when the conflict is over, they would be able to return their homes. That's why we said that EU should take over the finances of the refugee camps in Jordan, Turkey, Lebanon, because it's obvious we cannot expect them to bear this burden on their own. We should finance these refugee camps. If new ones are necessary to be established, let's finance them as well. And then our third proposal was that we have to make a very clear distinction between economic migrants and refugees, asylum seekers. Because, you know, our history, there were times when Hungarians had to leave, had to escape from Hungary. We are not people without heart, so and we learned the lesson of our history, and we have given shelter to refugees all over the history. But we cannot accept economic migrants because we are not that shape. And I'm telling you, if you have a look at those three figures I have cited here about Europe, Europe is not in a shape to accept hundreds of thousands or millions of economic migrants. So that was our suggestion. Not that successful yet, but what we have proposed today on the UN conference on migration was that since those bad international political decisions that have been made, that those were made only by Europeans. That's why we think that it's not only Europe that should bear the burden. So there should be some world quotas if you are speaking about quotas. And then if it is a global challenge, then it should be addressed globally. It doesn't make sense that it's not fair that there's a global challenge and Europe should bear the burden. So what we propose there, that all big international players should bear at least a part of the burden. Now we'll see what's going to be the reaction. Now, if you allow me, I just would like to say a couple things about Ukraine, because that was in the title of this occasion. And I was speaking too much about migration, but believe me, this is now the #1 issue. Not only in Europe, as far as I understood from international media. Now, Ukraine. Ukraine is our neighboring country. Of course, you hate the feeling when there's a war in your neighborhood, because that destabilizes the region. And we want to live in a strong region, in a strong Central Europe, And if there's a war in the neighborhood, that makes you weaker as well. That makes you more unstable as well. So our interest is that we should have a strong and stable Ukraine in our neighborhood, both politically and economically. We absolutely stand for the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and European perspective of Ukraine. And we understand that the only way to the peaceful settlement of this conflict leads through the Minsk agreement. Now, I'm pretty much aware of the fact that we are alleged, is it the right expression? Alleged being not very loyal to the common European policy towards Ukraine. But here we believe in actions and not in words. We understand that some of our friends are very, very loud when it comes to support to Ukraine. But on the ground, nothing happens. What we do here as a neighboring country, we don't really speak about that, but we really do actions. So there's a Hungarian diplomat who leads the EU Special Advisory Mission to Ukraine. We have the 5th most delegates in the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission. We spent already $7 million to help the Transcarpathian region, which is the western part of Ukraine, which is neighboring Hungary, where 150,000 Hungarians are living. But we do not only support the Hungarian institutions, rather than the Ukrainians as well, because we understood that we don't want Ukrainians feel that if we help, we only help the local Hungarians, because that can really boost nationalistic feelings. So we help Ukrainians, help Hungarians, and we spend more than $7 million on that, and we spent almost $1 million on any other parts of Ukraine to help the people there to live a better life. And you know why the war in Ukraine has a huge hazard on whole Europe is because the energy security of Central Europe mainly depends on Ukraine. Because, for example, Hungary, the 85% of our gas demand is supplied by Russia. In Slovakia, it's almost 100%. Serbia is totally dependent on us, and we are dependent on Russia. Bosnia is totally dependent on Serbia, which is totally dependent on us, and we are totally dependent on Russia. So you have to understand that in Central Europe, if Russia makes a decision to shut down the transit through Ukraine, as they are planning from 2019, then what is happening from the next day, we're not quite sure. So that's why it would be very important to have north to south infrastructures in Central Europe, which we have some forward progress, but we are absolutely not there where we would like to be. That's why there was a plan in the framework of energy diversification to have a pipeline connecting Central Europe with Russia from south, we called it South Stream, through Serbia, Bulgaria, and then to Hungary from Russia. But that was killed by European Union. saying that South Stream is against European values, against European interest, because it bypasses Ukraine. Okay, we said that's fair enough to say that, but here we are, Central European countries, we have to get gas somehow. They said, no, you cannot do it because you cannot have anything that bypasses Ukraine. All right. Couple, like what 2 months ago, there was a St. Petersburg Economic Forum in Moscow. I just would like to give you another example for hypocrisy. We were reached out by our American friends and some Western European friends not to take part on a high level on the St. Petersburg Economic Forum because that will show that you are not loyal. Okay, we said, fine, we understand. We don't take part on a high level. I read the news about the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, where 4 companies, Gazprom from Russia, E.ON from Germany, Shell from the Netherlands, and OMV from Austria, made an agreement about building Nord Stream. You know, Nord Stream, which will connect Russia, Germany, Austria, and the Western Europe, bypassing Ukraine. And that is not a problem. So that's why I say that until double standards are taking over politics in Europe, we're not going to be stronger for sure. So I just wanted to put this here on the table because I wanted to let you know that that energy security in Central Europe is a hot issue, an issue that needs to have a solution in the future. We don't have it yet, and we don't know what's going to happen after 2019 if Russia or Mr. Putin sticks to his formerly announced decision, saying that they would shut down transit through Ukraine from 2019 onwards. That's why it would be very important to accelerate those LNG projects in Central Europe, where we might have some support from our American friends as well. Now here I'm coming to the another aspect of the Ukrainian conflict, which is economy. You know, Ukraine has lost, I think, around like 20% of its industrial capacities, having the war in the eastern part of the country. Now, but what we have lost, Europeans, we have lost, in average, around 30 to 35% of our export to Russia. We have lost around 28 to 30% of our export to Ukraine. We have lost, in an average, like 20 to 30% of our exports to the CIS countries. So it has the war in Ukraine has a deep economic and trade impact on European Union. We have lost a lot already, and if Minsk agreements are not implemented in a short time, and if we are not able to have some forward progress regarding the economic sanctions, then it will cause much more difficulties for us. Now I would like to put another issue on the table, which is global cooperation between the transatlantic community, where we belong to, together with our American friends, and Russia. You know, if you start to speak about such issues in Europe, usually you are getting pretty serious attacks. But still we do it because, on the long run, I think the only way that A, Europe can get back at least a part of her lost competitiveness, B, the global community can overcome global challenges if we are able to rebuild a pragmatic cooperation between the transatlantic community and Russia. Just give you an example. No one would have thought that it would be possible to have an agreement with Iran on nuclear issues. And look what happened. Foreign ministers of US, China, Germany, Britain, France, and Russia sitting on the same side of the table, and the agreement was finally done. So I think that we should not be blind and should not be hypocritical. If there are global challenges, what we want to overcome, we cannot do without a pragmatic cooperation with Russia and China, by the way. So we have now this global challenge called Syria. I'm pretty sure that there's no solution without pragmatic cooperation with Russia. If we are not able to do so, we're never going to overcome that challenge. And that means the migratory pressure will never going to decrease on Europe. and that would really lead a destabilization of Europe. First the peripheries and then the center, which we should avoid. So here I would like to argue in favor of being that smart, to be able to rebuild somehow a pragmatic cooperation between our transatlantic community and Russia. Not to speak about Russia's endeavors to make a economic and trade integration called the Eurasian Economic Union. And it's obvious there is a global race between regional economic integrations, and if Europe is not able to have some cooperation at least with the Eurasian Economic Union, we'll be lagging behind. That's not a question. We see USA's policy on this way, on this respect. We thought that with the transatlantic trade and investment partnership, we Europeans will be the first ones to have a major free trade agreement with US. But what we see is that the Trans-Pacific Partnership will overtake TTIP by years. And USA will build up this strategic partnership with the Pacific. Russia is building its regional integration called Eurasian Economic Union, and there Europe will be standing there alone. And this is what we really would like to avoid. Now, if you allow me, last but not least, because the title says that how Europe can stay strong or something like that. It's a test for us. We have 8 points which should be fulfilled in order to be able to see a strong Europe from American perspective as well. First, Europe has to give back the honor and respect to work and to family. What we have done, we Hungarians have done in this respect, we have introduced a flat tax which helps those ones who would like to work more and those ones who would like to employ more people. We have a flat tax of 16% on personal income. From next year we have 15% on all kinds of personal income. So we try to have those ones who really would like to work, who like to really work more, and try to have those companies who like to employ more people. So first we have to give back respect to labor and to family. The second is that we should be much more disciplined regarding budgetary and fiscal policy, because if we are not able to stop the very accelerated increasing of state debt, then we will not get stronger for sure. When we took over the office in 2010, we had a debt ratio over GDP by 85%. Now we have 77%, which is lower, but we're still not there where we would like to be. But step by step, we are decreasing. But if Europe is not able to decrease state debts, then we will be in a deep trouble. The third, that Europe is now too much introverted, because we are very busy with our own problems. We try to resolve Ukrainian crisis, we try to resolve migration, we try to resolve economic challenges, and we are not open to the world. And as I mentioned, there's a global race between regional integrations, and we just simply lose our allies. I see the way how USA cooperates with China. Very, very tight cooperation. Very smart, by the way. Very tight cooperation, because on the surface, nothing to be seen. It's like water polo, You don't see anything above the water, but under that, magic things are happening there. Very smart, but it's a very tight cooperation between China and US. And we should do the same from European perspective, to work together with China and to work together with those regions of the world which are developing and emerging rapidly. Fourth, we have to decrease our defenseless regarding energy security. Fifth, Europe should really let member states be strong, because I'm pretty sure that there cannot be a strong European Union based on weak member states. It just simply doesn't work. Mathematics, If member states are strong, European Union can be strong, and this approach is not there, unfortunately, currently. Sixth, that we have to accelerate the European integration of the Western Balkan countries. I'm pretty sure you read a lot about the tensions in the Western Balkan that causes instability as well. So what we think is that the more rapidly we can integrate Western Balkan countries, the more stable we're gonna be. 7, we have to fight against terror. And eighth, we have to be able to protect the borders of Europe, because if we cannot, then we cannot overcome the most significant challenge, which is called mass migration currently. So I didn't want to paint a very sad picture on the wall. Maybe I not succeeded to avoid that, but what I wanted to do is to give you a realistic picture what has been going on in Europe, what has been happening in Ukraine, what kind of impact it has on the major ally of USA on the other side of the Atlantic. I hope that next time, if you invite me next time, sometimes, if you invite me after a while, I'll be able to give you some more optimistic picture about what has been going on in Europe. But currently, this is the situation. Thank you very much for your patience.
You see, the minister decided to stay with you and go later to have this dinner. This is already an inspiration coming from you. A few questions. We cannot have too many. The gentleman there. Where is the microphone? Here we have.
I agree with 90% of what you said, and I just say, I think I got the speech and false rise with 3 U.S. presidents, I think, are a large part of it, and later it's a mathematical problem of a diffusion, too, that we've exacerbated. But so far as Ukraine goes, are there any chances that you've seen that we will be exporting natural gas to Europe? And does Europe have any red lines when it comes to the Donbass with regard to Mariupol and maybe even Odessa?
Next mark or question?
There, youngsters.
And yeah, underscore.
Thank you. You outlined some problems that Putin has been doing, including Ukraine and some of the other countries that border him. It sounds like you want to reward him with greater economic integration between Europe and also some sort of political and military cooperation in Iraq and Syria. So I'd like to know more about how you square those two.
You can pass it to the lady there.
Hi, I'm Dr. Merchandine. Thank you for your comments. I'd love to know what you would like to see from the financial sector for both the mass migration issue and the refugee crisis. Do you think microfinance would be helpful for the refugees? Do you think supply chain finance for the food agency, UN food agencies would be helpful? I would love your thoughts.
Milyen pénzügyi implikációt, hogyan lehetne megoldani a migránsoknak helyzetét? Válaszol most, és utána
folytatjuk, vagy volt a hölgy, és akkor if you can... Then we have the 2 ladies there at the back and the front.
Yeah.
And then those 2. Okay. We take those 4 questions. Is it okay?
Yes, okay.
When it comes to Ukraine, probably we have to first of all think about what's the price this country paid for the conflict in the east. It was caused by Russian aggression. And I'm talking about people dead, because you know that 8,000 people were killed. Moreover, 1.5 million of people are IDPs, internally displaced people. We also have to measure this conflict in terms of sovereign, territorial sovereignty, right? Because UN, why we are all here, is United Nations, and they were united because there were some principles and values which we managed to gain after the Second World War. What is important for us is for the human civilization. So my question would be, you were talking about economic effects, and also gas problems, challenges. But what's the historic price that Putin and Russia has to pay while caused this war in the 21st century in the heart of your thinking?
The lady in the front.
Could you comment on Putin's move into Syria and his supposed aims of destroying ISIS and supporting Assad?
Mega, to start. We take these 3 questions, okay?
So my question has to do also with the borders. We understand, at least from watching television, that at the borders they've been separating the men from the women, and in many cases separating the fathers from the small children. So mothers are left struggling behind the men who can forge forward, and young mothers struggling with 2 children, carrying one of them on their backs across Europe. So why has there not been an effort at the borders to bring the mothers with small children forward and try to, whenever possible, keep them with their fathers?
We have these 2 questions. Ezt a 2-t még legyen kedves megengedni, és akkor utána befejeztük.
You mentioned the problems that Europe is trying to wrestle with, and then you said really the global reaction should be, the world should be responding to that. And I was kind of curious how you thought that would happen, who would take the lead, and how long it might take.
Miklos?
Thank you, Foreign Minister, for the lecture. I really liked it. Just a friendly advice from another Hungarian. You mentioned 2 things that caught my attention. One is that the Hungarians are not heartless. Everyone is the Western media's treatment of Hungary. The Western media, well known, is very biased. So don't take it too seriously. It's very influenced by special interests and politics and all of this. So don't take it seriously. The other thing is America's friendship, especially as you know today, is extremely stretchable towards the former communist countries in Eastern Europe. So as you keep doing what your heart and mind thinks the best and the just for Hungary, America will be very supportive and will be on your side. So don't worry too much about that. Thank you so much.
Mr. Minister, I think it's time to answer.
Thank you very much for all of your questions. First, if you allow me on Syria, you know, I think the only way that is acceptable to solve this conflict is through negotiations. And here I agree with the German Chancellor. The German Chancellor said that negotiations should be inclusive to the maximum. And I agree with her in this respect. And now, I'm not speaking about who's gonna lead Syria after once we are over this conflict. Because if you think always like 2-3 steps, we're not gonna solve the first one. So I think here the developments in Syria and the way the international community approach to that question teaches us the lesson that we have to go step by step. And the first step should be creating peace in Syria. And I agree with the German Chancellor that if we let out some stakeholders in this respect, then we're never going to be successful with that. But here, I just want to say that, you know, I'm aware of the dimension of my country, and I'm aware of the dimension of my role. And it's not going to be the Hungarians who resolve this issue. We can just make proposals in this respect. We can just make our voice to be heard. And I just want to make sure once again that there will be no solution without a Russian-American agreement about Syria. There will be no solution in Syria without a Russian-American agreement. If Russia and US continues to disagree on what should be done in North Africa and Middle East, there will be no long-term solution. I just would like to put this fact on the table, and I'm not judging it, whether it's good or bad, whether it would be desirable to talk to each other or not, how we can deal with each other. It's just a fact that we have to be aware. You know, now regarding the fence on our border, you know, I think if you are a state, you have to have control over your borders. And if you want to go to another country, you have to respect the laws there. And it is regulated in the modern world how you can cross a border. And I don't think that would be acceptable by any reasons, that if there's a group of people who would like to go from point A to point B, then regardless what is in between, they just go. It's not the way it should work. In Europe, if you travel from Hungary to the, or if you travel from Serbia to Hungary, because you come from the beaches of Bulgaria, then you stand the line at the border crossing point with your travel documents, you show it, you wait like 1 or 2 hours, or depending on traffic, and then you cross. This is a normal way of life. It's not normal that people are coming without any kind of control, and they just because they want to go to Germany, they go through Hungary as they want. They go through borders, they don't respect our laws, they don't respect our borders. This is not the normal way of life. Migration should be safe and regulated, as the UN Sustainable Development Goals say. It must be regulated. So if you would like to come to Hungary, first, whether you have to have a travel documentation. If you do not, okay, then you have to submit a request for asylum. But it has a regulated way. You go there to the assigned border crossing point and you submit your request. That's how normally it works. And we have not built the fence in a way that there were parts of families in Hungary, parts of families in Serbia. Everyone knew that there would be a fence there because we informed everyone. And I think that, if there's a family coming together, then for me it's unacceptable that they try to push the child, the defenseless child, in the front. They should protect the child and not pushing him or her into the front, So I think that that here everyone must respect laws. Everyone must respect the legislative frameworks, and of course we always give shelter for kids coming alone. That was never a question, never a question. They get shelter, but I think that here is not only the states that should behave responsible. There's the migrants, the parents that have to behave responsible as well. Regarding the global answer on migration, how long it's going to take? Very long. Because if you are not able to overcome those challenges which are now surrounding Europe in these unstable regions from Libya through Yemen to Syria to Iraq to Afghanistan, if we are not able to overcome these challenges, there's always going to be hundreds of thousands of people who will hit the road to Europe. Always. So it's going to take long, and I think we have to accept this is a global challenge. Who should take the lead? The UN should take the lead. That's why today our Prime Minister urged the Secretary General to put forward a proposal. He is Secretary General of the United Nations. It's a responsibility. So he should. If you are speaking about a global challenge, then the legislative, the institutional framework to address is the UN. So I think that here UN should show that this organization can take the lead if it is necessary. Now, regarding if I understood the question correctly about financial issues, first I just want to put this on the table that Hungary has spent 220 million euros this year on taking care of migrants, which is from an American perspective not a big amount of money, but from Hungary you can be sure it's a big one. 220 million euros. Regarding finances, I think, European Union spends billions of euros of European taxpayers on development programs for third countries, mainly for countries which are not the sources of the migration and the neighborhood. And here, without any kind of conditionality which would be in touch with migration. What our proposal is that we have to increase the financial resources for development programs, but we have to stick them to conditionality. So we have to give these amounts of money to these countries, saying, okay, you got it, but you have to make development programs which then end up in a better situation and better perspective in your countries for these people, so they will not escape from their homes, politically, legally, economically. So I think that if we are speaking about financial solution, solutions, that could be a way to do so. That's why we said that we would agree a kind of amendment of the EU budget as well, if it is necessary, to raise new financial resources to finance the refugee camps in Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon. We would agree with a cut of expenses of European Union by 1%, or to increase the pay-ins by 1% by all member states. If we do so, we can gain around 3 billion euros by cutting the costs by 1%, and another 3 billion euros by increasing the pay-ins by 1%. So it's a 6 billion euros altogether. That should be enough to take over the financing of the refugee camps in Turkey, Jordan, and Lebanon. Now, regarding the gas import from US, you know, first the US Congress made some favorable decisions, but it's still not there where we should be in order to be a totally liberalized export of liquefied natural gas from US to Europe. And the second precondition is to have infrastructure to receive liquefied natural gas. And we are absolutely not there to be able to do so. We have some plans. We Central European countries work on these together, but we need time. So on the long run, that can be a solution, but not until 2019 for sure, unfortunately. But on the long run, we've been working on that. Now, regarding the gentleman's question on cooperation between Europe and Russia. You know, I don't want this cooperation because of Putin. I want this cooperation because of Europe. Because without a pragmatic cooperation between Russia and Europe, Europe will not get back not a piece of its lost competitiveness for sure. And of course, referring to the other question by the lady about Ukraine, we're standing for Ukraine's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and European perspective. On the last Eastern Partnership Summit, our Prime Minister initiated an immediate visa-free regime for Ukraine. Because we think that if the will of the Ukrainian people is to have a European perspective, then we have to give it to them. And there's no other country that has the authority to change the decision of the Ukrainian people. Because if the Ukrainian people would like to live a life integrated into Europe, then we have to accept their decision. And I think we have to make sure that it is an obligation of everyone to comply with international law and to respect territorial integrity and sovereignty of other countries. We have to make it sure. European Union made it sure. We have decided in favor of sanctions against Russia. Very tough sanctions, which has very, very negative impact on us. But we didn't care about the negative impact on us. We imposed those sanctions because we are standing for the territorial integrity and freedom of Ukraine. But if we want to overcome global challenges, which I understand is one of the objectives of American foreign policy as well, to overcome global challenges like Iran, Syria, and all the others. Now, I'm just saying it again as describing and not judging, not qualifying. It's not going to work without at least a pragmatic, then I don't say cooperation, I say dialogue with Russia. And I understand President Obama and President Putin had some talks during the UN General Assembly. I'm not quite sure about the outcome, but at least they talked to each other. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Secretary Kerry is waiting for you. I'm sorry to say.
Good excuse to leave, I mean.
Being originally a journalist, you know, I just hear all the questions here in my ear, what you all could ask after this very thought-provoking lecture and open thinking. And I just hope that there will be a time when the minister doesn't have to run, because I'm sure it would have been very nice to continue all these questions which are so up at the moment and which concern really the future of not only America, not only Hungary, but really humanity. And I really appreciate you giving the time. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your association, which has been here since 1918, honoring us, being interested in the thoughts of the Hungarian Foreign Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you.